Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 12-team half-PPR mock draft from the second overall spot using FantasyPros Draft Wizard. We're going to be drafting up against the Yahoo Sports ADP as well as the Sleeper ADP. The roster positions for today's mock are 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, flex, kicker, defense, and 5 bench spots. But before we could get on into this mock draft, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. And if you guys would like access to my rankings, they are available on the Patreon link in the video description. So without further ado, let's get into this 12-team half-PPR mock draft from the second overall spot. So at number 2, if you know you're going to be the second overall pick in your fantasy football draft, you know that Christian McCaffrey more than likely is going to be the number 1 overall pick in, I would say, about 99.99% of leagues. There will obviously be the occasional league where Lamb or Tyreek goes at the 101. Now, in terms of my rankings after McCaffrey is off the board, a lot of the time I'm going to take Tyreek Hill because he is ranked as my second overall player, my number 1 wide receiver. But you could debate between him and CeeDee Lamb, and I do have them back-to-back in my rankings. Now, there obviously is some concern right now about a holdout with CeeDee Lamb because the team did not give him his contract yet. I'm not too worried about that. I assume that everything gets figured out by the start of the season. But as we edge closer and closer to the start of the season, the fact that the contract isn't done yet is, at least in my opinion, somewhat concerning. Tyreek Hill is older than CeeDee Lamb, and that could be a reason as to why you like CD over Tyreek Hill. Right now, with the contract dispute, I think everything's going to be fine. So if you wanted CD at this pick, you could take him. If you want Tyreek at that pick, you could take him. To me, those are really the only 2 players you would be choosing between. Since normally I do take Tyreek Hill from this spot in this mock draft, we'll go with CeeDee Lamb. Again, am I somewhat worried about the contract situation? Yes. But am I so worried that if I was all in on CeeDee Lamb that I would pass him up? The answer to that would be no. I think CeeDee Lamb could easily be the wide receiver number 1 yet again in 2024. The Dallas Cowboys offense is a funnel to CeeDee Lamb. They don't really have too many targets outside of CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson. So I think that CeeDee Lamb is going to have yet another huge season, and I believe that Dak Prescott is going to target him at one of the highest rates in the NFL. To me, I think that CeeDee Lamb is a no-brainer pick at number 2. Normally, I take Tyreek Hill, though, but again, they are back-to-back in my rankings. After Lamb, Tyreek, Breece Hall, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jonathan Taylor, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, Jameer Gibbs, Puka Nacua, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Travis Etienne Jr., Mike Evans, Drizzy Drake London, Isaiah Pacheco, and Devontae Adams. So looking at running backs, best available are Devon Achane, Josh Jacobs, Rashad White, James Cook. At wide receiver, Chris Olave, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Nico Collins, and Jalen Waddle. Now, if we knew right now that Brandon Ayuk was 100% not going to get traded, he would be the easiest selection here. If we knew for sure that Brandon Ayuk was going to get traded, then Deebo Samuel would be a no-brainer pick here because Deebo Samuel's ranking would skyrocket through the fucking roof if Brandon Ayuk was to get traded, because now you're taking away a lot of target competition, and Deebo Samuel would be the true number 1 target on this team. And with his rushing upside and his skill set, that's a guy that you might even rank inside of the top 8 wide receivers. But with Ayuk being there and with everything pointing towards Ayuk staying with the 49ers, I think that Ayuk is certainly worthy of a second-round pick, one of the most efficient wide receivers in the National Football League. Now, the question here is, do we want to go with Ayuk or Chris Olave here, or do we want to go ahead and just get our running back 1 here? Now, I am fine with either Achane or Josh Jacobs, as I view them in a very similar light. Achane is a guy that a lot of people are nervous about because of how many touches he's going to get, and he was only so effective because he was super efficient, this, that, and the other thing. But what people are failing to understand is that the second year mark is very important at the running back position. Normally in the second years when the running back really transcends. I believe that's going to happen with Bijan. That's going to happen with Achane. So I'm going to go with Devon Achane here because it's just a little bit less questionable, right? There's question marks with Aiyuk. Now, again, I really do believe he will stay as a 49er, and if he falls back to us, I'm going to fucking take him with my pick. But Devon Achane, you know that guy's a Miami Dolphin, and I do understand that Mostert's going to get touches, right? I'm a Dolphins fan. I love Raheem Mostert, but Devon Achane is the young buck. Raheem Mostert is ancient. So, and he has injury history in the past, so Devon Achane should be in the driver's seat of this offense. Solid pass catcher, and the Dolphins were talking about in the offseason going and putting him out wide, right? And normally, that's a whole bunch of malarkey, right? If you hear a coach talking about that, you could basically just brush that off, right? Hey, that is not going to happen. But then, what actually happened in preseason is we saw him run out wide, and we saw a pass thrown his way. So after Devon Achane, Travis Kelce, and Josh Allen. Interesting start here. You get the running back one off the board with McCaffrey. Then you get the number one tight end in my books. And then you get the number two quarterback. I would take Jalen Hurts over Josh Allen. But again, that's kind of just grasping at straws there, that argument, right? They are very, very close in my rankings. Very interesting start to your team. With it only being 2 wide receivers start, that could be something that I would do in a format like this, whereas in a full PPR league where maybe you have 2 flexes or 3 wide receivers, starting like this feels a little bit risky, but that's not the format we are playing in right now. So looking at wide receivers, Olave, Aiyuk still available. But if I'm being honest with you guys, I really like the range of wide receivers. That is going to come back to me in the 4th round. The fact that we have CeeDee Lamb already, our hammer piece at the wide receiver position, I feel very comfortable passing up on the wide receivers here because, again, there are definitely question marks with Olave, Aiyuk, and Deebo Samuel. The question mark with Olave is just, is Derek Carr good enough to make Chris Olave a top 10 receiver? I think Chris Olave is an amazing wide receiver. He deserves getting the ball fondle special, right, where people are giving him the gawk 9,000. The only question with him is the quarterback play because the quarterback play was straight cheeks. Aiyuk, the question, obviously, will he be a 49er, will he not? And then Deebo, will Aiyuk be a 49er or not? Definitely affects my opinion on them. So we are going to go running back, and we are going to go with Josh Jacobs. Now, Josh Jacobs is a guy that I see that a lot of people are nervous to draft, right? Because, oh, they have Dylan, Marshawn Lloyd, this, that, and the other thing. And the Green Bay Packers are notorious for kind of cycling the running back in and out, right? Josh Jacobs won't be this workhorse running back. What I will tell you is I actually think there is a chance that due to the running backs behind him being so mid, that he might just be a workhorse running back. And guess what? Even if he isn't, even if he's not getting that Las Vegas Raiders workload, he is so good. Without the workload, he'll be fine. Plus, and this is a humongous plus, Packers are going to be really good. They're going to be knocking on the door. They are going to be able to score at a very high rate. And when they're in the red zone, you could expect that Josh Jacobs is going to see a bunch of touches. Plus, Jacobs is a lot better of a pass catcher than people give him credit for. So I like Josh Jacobs. I'm a huge fan of this Packers team this season. And I think anyone that's nervous about the Green Bay Packers is going to feel very, very stupid about 3 weeks into the season once they see 3 great games out of this offense. So after Jacobs, Rashad with 2 A's, White, Chris Olave, James, let him cook, Sam Laporta, Brandon Aiyuk, Joe Mixon, Deebo Samuel, Pat Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Nico Collins, Cooper Kupp, Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, Alvin Kamara, David Montgomery, Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore, Wiki, Aaron Jones, Lamar Jackson, and James Conner. I have been seeing Pat Mahomes come off the board as like the quarterback 1 and even 2. Recently, to me, he is definitely ranked behind Josh Allen and Hurts just because of Hurts and Josh Allen's rushing upside. So we're back up on the clock here. Best tight end available would be Mark Andrews or Trey McBride. Mark Andrews was actually involved in a car accident a couple of days ago. I don't think I really mentioned it because there doesn't appear to be any issues with him. That's why I never mentioned it, but obviously that's, I guess, something to note. I have McBride ranked ahead of Andrews. I think McBride could easily be the tight end 1, but McBride continues to fall, and since this team already drafted a quarterback and a tight end, if I wanted a quarterback or a tight end, I would draft them in the 5th round, not the 4th round. Now, that is something that is very important. If you're a newer fantasy football player, or even been playing for a while, make sure you're looking at the draft board. And if your league settings don't have a draft board, the website that you're playing on is fucking Fugazi, because some of these websites don't have a draft board, which makes no sense. Look at the teams around you. You can click on any website and look at the teams. And look, if you're at the 2nd pick, look at the 1st team. Hey, are they likely to take another quarterback, a tight end? Who do they have on their team? Because that can be very telling. And instead here, what if we didn't know that, right? We didn't look. And then we take a quarterback here. And then the wide receiver or the running back, the whatever, doesn't come fucking back to us. And then you feel like a buffoon because if you just took half of a second to check, you wouldn't have reached and you wouldn't have gotten sniped. So the running backs in this range are Stevenson, White, Najee, Mostert, DeAndre Swift. Jalen Warren got hurt yesterday, so maybe that gives a slight bump up to Najee. But we don't really know how severe that injury is and if that's going to knock him out multiple games. We're getting closer to the season, so the more injuries that happen, the more impactful it will be. So there's a range at running back where I like Zamir, I like Ramondre. I'm fine with these guys, but in the 4th, the 5th round, it feels a little bit like too high of a price in my opinion. So I'm glad that I snagged the 2 running backs early, so I don't even have to worry at all about this range. At wide receiver, Michael Pittman Jr., Devontae Smith, Malik Neighbors, Amari Cooper. Now, Daniel Jones looked like straight up ass. So trash in that preseason game. He threw an interception that was almost comical, that you could like hear like circus music as you were watching the game. It was like do 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 as he's like running around like a fucking dumbass and then throws an interception. The guy is straight up terrible, but Malik Neighbors is so good that I think he's going to be able to excel ahead of that. Now, where he's coming off the board on Underdog Fantasy, right, where he's like a 3rd round pick, feels a little bit suspect, but in the 4th, the 5th round, especially if you have already drafted multiple receivers and then he's your 3rd option, it feels a lot better, or your 2nd option, right? If I didn't have any receivers up to this point and I wanted Neighbors, it would feel a lot more risky, in my opinion. So we're not going running back. We don't need a tight end or a quarterback because we just take them in the 5th round, unless, of course, manager number 1 is just rolling off a bean, snorting some coke or something, and just doing something absurd and drafting another quarterback or another tight end, which would make no sense. We're good to wait till the next round. So it's 100% going to be a wide receiver. Pittman, Smith, Neighbors, Cooper. Diggs, Higgins, Flowers, Dell. I used to not like Devontae Smith, but I'm starting to like him a little bit more because the Kellen Moore offense should lead to the Eagles passing the ball a little bit more compared to usual. Devontae Smith had a pretty bad year last season compared to what we thought he would put up. He's still going to get over 100 targets just like last season, but I think the production could be a little bit better. So I definitely like him a little bit more than I did just a couple of weeks ago. But again, am I in love with Devontae Smith? No. So I want to go with Amari Cooper at this pick. Now, originally a couple weeks ago when it seemed like Ayuk was going to get traded to the Browns, I started to panic a little bit on Amari Cooper. But now that that's kind of in the rearview mirror, I get that Deshaun Watson was pretty so-so when playing, but Amari Cooper is still an outstanding wide receiver. He doesn't get the credit that he deserves. This is a guy that any given week could pop off for 25 plus points. He is the clear number 1 target in this offense. Jerry Jeudy couldn't even hold the guy's jock strap. So Amari Cooper is in for a solid season in Cleveland, even if Deshaun Watson doesn't really level up at a high rate, right? If he doesn't evolve, he doesn't go from Squirtle to fucking Blastoise, okay? So Amari Cooper, Michael Pittman Jr., and Stephon Diggs back up on the clock here. Now, I have been someone that is laserized in these mock drafts on Anthony Richardson. I love Anthony Richardson. The injury risk is blatant, right? The guy got hurt a gazillion times last season. People in the comments have been calling him Anthony Injured Son, but when this guy's healthy, he is a top 3, top 5 quarterback at minimum. Now, the risk is obviously there. Hey, the guy could get hurt again. But if he doesn't get hurt, he plays all the games in the 5th round when people are taking Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen in the 2nd or the 3rd round, you're getting a multiple round drop on a guy with the same exact upside. Now, you could also maybe wait another round to get Kyler Murray. Similar upside, similar player. I love Anthony Richardson, but again, we take him so much in these mock drafts that I don't even think it would be worth doing so, because I don't like to do the same thing in every video. I will advise, if you guys are doing a bunch of mock drafts, do different things, right? Go hero running back. Draft 3 fucking running backs in the first 3 rounds. See how you like it. Draft 3 receivers in a row. Draft a quarterback early, a tight end early. Maybe completely punt the quarterback position, punt the tight end position, and just see how things are going, because not every single draft is going to go the exact same way you do your mock draft. And if you're just mock drafting the same way every time, and then you get to your draft, and then someone does something ridiculous, or the players that you like don't fall your way, then you're going to be sitting there having a full-blown panic attack in front of your computer, and you don't need to do that. That's why you need to do the mock draft. So to me, it's between Neighbors or McBride, or I guess Andrews. I have McBride right ahead of Andrews, so I probably would just take McBride. I think I'm going to go ahead and lean with Trey McBride. We do take him a decent amount, but I do believe very heavily in his skill set. This is a guy that really turned it on once he became the starter. Multiple 15-plus point games, and with Kyler Murray now fully healthy, the consistency, I think, is going to come a lot more for McBride. Plus, I think the offense is going to be a lot better with Maserati Marv Harrison Jr. there to be able to boost this offense into the next level. So after we went ahead and drafted Trey McBride, it appears that that was the right decision. Because if we wanted a tight end, a lot of them went. After McBride, Ramondre Stevenson, Mark Andrews, Malik Neighbors, Zamir White, DeAndre Swift, Devontae Smith, CJ Stroud, George Kittle Timbers, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, Raheem Mostert, Najee Harris, Tank Dell, Zay Flowers, Anthony Richardson, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Evan Ingram, T. Higgins, and Dak Prescott. So the quarterback and the tight end run started typically by the 5th or 6th round if fantasy football owners, managers, the people in your league don't have a quarterback or a tight end. A lot of the time, that's where the panic starts to set in and the run at the quarterback or tight end position start. And sometimes it's a run at both. Now we're sitting here kind of with our thumb up our ass thinking, should we have went quarterback and tight end on the turn, right? How much do we love these other guys? But the good thing is now we can just wait. We could pick up the value at running back and wide receiver while everyone else is playing catch up because they drafted a quarterback earlier. Now, 2 other teams still don't have a quarterback, but based upon how I know fantasy drafts are going, Jordan Love, his ADP is pick 72, so he might not come back to us, but I think there's a chance that he does. So I don't overwhelmingly feel like I need to pull the trigger in the 6th or the 7th, but to be honest with you, he probably won't come back to the 8th. And like I've said, I am a humongous cheesehead this season. I have been banging the drum all offseason for the Green Bay Packers. I've been sucking them dry, fucking Mia Malkova style. So Jordan Love is a guy that I definitely want. And again, I'm probably not going to risk not getting him, so I'm probably going to end up taking him in the next round. But we don't have to take him here, again, because the other team already has quarterback or a tight end. And it is also important to note that sometimes people that play in your league aren't the smartest. They're not the sharpest knife in the cupboard. So some people might take a second quarterback by like the 9th round, right? And you're waiting, and then you start getting iced out because multiple people take 2 quarterbacks, and then you're sitting there feeling just downright diabolically bad. So Christian Kirk's a guy I'm starting to panic about slightly with the calf injury, with the snaps in preseason. Am I fully in panic mode? No, but I'm definitely going to bump him down my rankings. I love Rashee Rice. I like Pickens. But again, Pickens, it's like there's such a fucking question mark. Like, is Ayuk going to get traded there or not? Feels like they're just teasing us for weeks and weeks. Like, just tell us. And I don't think they're ever going to. So we're going to go with Rashee Rice here. It's going to tell us that it is a reach. But I am just the commander of the Rashee Rice Express. This is a guy that in underdog early drafts was like a 3rd, 2nd round pick before all of the question marks came in with the suspension. But now it appears he's not going to get suspended, and he's going to keep rising up the board. So after Rashee Rice, George Pickens, and Tony Pollard. So now we're going to get Jordan Love. Now, do you have to fill out your whole entire roster before you go to your bench? The answer to that is no. You could draft 2 more receivers, 2 more running backs before you even get to your quarterback position. You don't have to. But I'm going to do that because I like Jordan Love so much. Now, another question that I get all the time is, Nick, are you comfortable drafting 2 players on the exact same team? And that answer is a little bit complicated because am I comfortable drafting 2 guys on the Giants? Fuck no, baby. Am I comfortable drafting 2 guys on the Chargers, the Titans, the Saints, Panthers, the bad teams? No, I'm not. But if they're on a good team like the Packers, I like it. Now, Jacobs kind of takes away from Love in a way because most of the touchdowns Love gets, he's not throwing to Jacobs, right? When you can get Love stacked with one of his receivers, it's a little bit better than stacking the quarterback and the running back. But I don't think it's really that negative of an EV play. Like, I don't think I'm shooting my team in the foot by doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and get Jordan Love. I'd be fine with Horsecock Brock or Jaden Daniels, Tua Tagovailoa, who looked dominant 50 Shades of Grey style up against the Commanders in preseason week number 2. But I'm going to go ahead and get my guy, Jordan Love. Anytime I can get him in like the 7th round, especially if he falls to the 8th round, I'm jumping on that all the time. Pause. After Jordan, love me tender, love me sweet, we see Christian Kirk, Jalen Warren, Brock Purdy, Brian Robinson Jr., Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, Jonathan Brooks, Zach Moss, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, the Niners defense, Chris Godwin, Javonte Williams, the Ravens, Odunze, Deontay Johnson, Jalen Riley Reed, Devin Singletary, Austin Eckler, Jets, and Calvin Ridley. So since we have these 2 hammer pieces, the double hero running back with Devon Achane and Josh Jacobs, there is no reason at all to take another running back right here. Now, are we going to have to take another running back? Yes, we do. But here, I don't necessarily feel obliged like I have to. Now, I probably will in the next round, because once you start getting into this range, there are just so many more question marks. But as of right now, I feel fine taking a wide receiver first. Since we already have Love and Jacobs, I don't want to go too far into the hole for the Green Bay Packers, so we're going to go elsewhere. Worthy starting to move up boards. I would be fine drafting both Worthy and Rashee Rice if I'm being blatantly honest with you, because the Chiefs are a good team. Worthy has looked good so far in preseason, but I'm going to go with JSN. I feel like JSN is going to have his breakout year in his 2nd season. Obviously, last year was a straight-up dud. He came into the season hurt, and that impacted him. He really only had 1 solid game last year, but he is a guy that I think has all of the skill set to have that 2nd-year leap, and we are hunting for upside here, because again, I feel pretty confident in Lamb, Cooper, and Rice, so I don't need to just take a layup on like DeAndre Hopkins, who's fucking hurt right now. Might not even it might not even play the first game of the season, so I'd rather just take the upside shot on JSN. Now, it's putting like a wee-woo, panic. You've already drafted 3 players on the same bye week. This is something I talk about all the time. Bye weeks don't matter unless you're drafting 2 quarterbacks or 2 tight ends. They do not matter. By week number 10, some of these guys on this team could be hurt, knock on wood. Some of these guys might be straight up irrelevant, right? They might straight up be trash, and you don't even want them on your team, and you cut them. If you're someone that uses the waiver wire heavily like I do, that is such a key to winning fantasy football. The draft isn't important. Yes, could drafting that late round stud, the Mostert, the Achane, the Puka Nacua from last year, right? Does that help you a ton? Yes. But the waiver wire, where you could have gotten Kyron, Puka, waiver wire is just as important, if not maybe even more important, if you want to argue that way. So here at running back, we're going to go ahead, and we already have Achane and Jacobs, who I think are a solid group. So we're going to go for more upside here and go with Chase Brown. Gus Edwards feels like kind of the more safe pick, because we kind of know he's going to be the lead back on the Chargers, whereas Chase Brown's in a competition with Zach Moss. But Chase Brown's upside would be very significant on what would be an amazing offense in the Bengals if something happened to Moss, or if he becomes the lead back after Chase Brown, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, who you just should not be drafting at all. I'm going to be talking about him in tomorrow's video. Now, I was supposed to record that video today, but I slept in because I was watching the UFC last night. Rest in piss, Izzy. Thank God that man lost. I can't stand Izzy. But Hollywood Brown is going to be in that video. It's going to be players I'm avoiding, and he's one of them. Trey Benson, Gus Edwards, Jordan Addison-Ray, Christian Watson, Ladd McConkey, DeAndre Hopkins, Keon Coleman, Cortland Sutton, Ezekiel Elliott, Blake Corum, Jameson Williams, Brian Thomas Jr., Jerome Ford, F-150, Curtis Samuel, Zach Charbonnet, Chuba Hubbard, Tyler Lockett, and Jacoby Myers. So we're back up to bat here. We could go running back again, but since I feel locked in with those guys and I want to be starting 3 receivers at all times, injuries happen. Let's go ahead and get some more wide receiver depth here. And Joshua Palmer just feels like such a layup at this point. Joshua Palmer, to me, I think he has a very good shot of being the wide receiver 1. I don't think the Chargers offense is really going to be all that good. To be honest, I think they're going to run the ball a lot. But if Joshua Palmer's the clear number 1 with Justin Herbert, the pervert, under center, he's just bound to be successful. But we do take him a lot, so we kind of want to be a little bit different, right? Again, don't take the same players every time. I love Dobbs this year, but again, I'm just a huge Packers fan for this season. But we're going to go with Magic Mike Williams. Could he have been available by the next round? Maybe. Maybe, just maybe. And honestly, I think he will be. So the play here is probably going running back and then receiver. So we're going to go ahead here and go with Rico Dowdle. Get the number 2 back on a team whose lead back is Ezekiel Elliott, who is ancient. Dust, doesn't look very good. Now, I still think the team's going to run Zeke a lot because that's just kind of the Cowboys' way. Jerry Jones is a fucking sicko. So is Mike McCarthy. But Rico Dowdle, I like the upside that he has. And Chase Brown and Rico Dowdle have basically become guys that if they're available in the 9th and 10th round, I am always going to be taking them. After Rico Dowdle, Dontavian Wicks, and A.J. Dillon. So we're going to go wide receiver here and go with Mike Williams. Now, will Mike Williams be healthy week 1? Maybe, maybe not. The reports of him being on the kind of timeline of Breece Hall tells you that Breece Hall, the timeline last year was he might play week 1, he might not. Then he played week 1 and was dealing out back shots to the Buffalo Bills. Now, Mike Williams, will he be there up against the Niners in week 1? Maybe, maybe not. But I'm thinking more likely it's yes. And Mike Williams last year was a top 12 receiver. Why would he not play well again? Again, he's coming off the injury. It's a change of scenery, but he's the clear number 2 on the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, why not take the shot in the 11th round? After Magic Mike, Jake Ferguson, Dameon Pierce, Romeo Doubs, Joshua Palmer, Brock Bowers, David Njoku, Dallas Goedert, Khalil Herbert, Adonai Mitchell, Odell Beckham Jr., Tua turning the ball over, my main man Tua, J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson, Jalen Wright, Ty Chandler, Kendre Miller, Tyler Algier, Caleb Williams, Elijah Mitchell, and Jaleel McLaughlin. So here we are going to go ahead and close things out with, here we're either going to go running back or wide receiver, and based upon how much more difficult it is to kind of find a running back off of waiver wire, obviously there's going to be those crazy running backs out of nowhere, but I would rather just take the shot with my last pick on the other running back, and maybe I somehow magically drafted the next Kyron Williams or something like that. I understand that we only have 1 quarterback and 1 tight end, but if you're paying the draft capital in the 5th round to get Trey McBride, you're expecting McBride to play well, right? If things go south, you just cut him, put someone else on your team, and have another tight end, right? For Jordan Love, we're expecting Jordan Love to be great. If Jordan Love fucking sucks to high heaven, then guess what? We're probably pissed off and we're going to have to cut him or someone else to get another quarterback, but there's no need in putting 2 quarterbacks or 2 tight ends on this team and trying to switch them in and out. You're just going to drive yourself mad doing that. So we're going to go ahead here and go. I like Tyrone Tracy. I like Braylon Allen. I do like the talent of Estime, but I don't really think he'll end up being anything. Let's go Ray Davis. He's looked fine in preseason. And if something happened to James Cook, he could be one of those guys that does end up as a league winner. So we're going to go ahead and draft Ray Davis there. And then we're going to go with a kicker and a defense. If your league doesn't make you draft a kicker and a defense, you can draft more bench spots. Go right ahead and do that, because once you do that, now, obviously, you're going to have to cut them for the kicker and defense, but if something was to happen, to say you just pick up some random running back and then the starter gets hurt, now you instantly got a guy that is worth a lot in a trade and worth a lot to your team. So now here, we're going to go with a kicker and a defense. We'll go with Justin Tucker, the fucker himself. And then we are got to go with a defense. For defenses, you want to draft a defense that's going up against a not-so-hot offense in week 1. The skill of the defense doesn't really matter. Obviously, you'd prefer to have a better defense up against a bad opponent, but that doesn't always fall to you, especially if your league is drafting defenses in like the 8th or 7th round, which is one of the biggest no-no-nos in fantasy football. You are so heavily hurting your depth doing that, and sometimes People are even taking them so early that they don't even have like a fucking tight end and they're taking the defense first, which to me, every single time I see it, I cringe. I think it is one of the stupidest decisions you can make, and it's mostly made by newer players. So while I do make these videos, I think they're for the players that have been playing for a while. I think I'm also pretty helpful to the newer players, but that's a mistake a lot of the newer players make. My defenses to draft video will be coming out in the next couple of days because it's basically draft season and you're going to want to know that information. So looking at the defenses available, we got the Bills against the Cardinals, which, I mean, is fine, but I don't love it with kind of how the Bills have switched in and out a lot of players on that defense compared to last season. We got the Texans. We're going up against the Colts. I don't really love that matchup. I could see that being pretty high scoring. The Saints up against the Panthers will be the pick. Now, I actually think the Panthers are going to be much improved this year, and I think that Frank Reich being gone is a huge push for this team. I think just the whole new system is going to be very beneficial for Bryce Young. But at the end of the day, like the first game out the jump, Saints defense is solid, so I think that they could end up like potentially making the Panthers only score like 14 points, maybe getting a pick or two, a couple sacks. That's kind of just what I'm looking for. Again, week 2, say the Saints are playing up against the 49ers, or they're playing up against the Eagles, or they're playing up against whatever offense, the Chiefs, right, that you think is going to be great. Then you drop them like it's hot, pick up a new defense. I make defenses to stream videos every single week. So our team here is Jordan Love Me Tender, Love Me Sweet, Devon Achane, Josh Jacobs, CD Lamb, Amari Cooper, Trey McBride, Rashee Rice, the Saints, Tucker, JSN, Chase Brown, Rico Dowdle. You might just get hit with Rico McBilly, Mike Evans, and Ray Davis. Thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you ended up enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. If you did end up enjoying, hit that subscribe button like Kai Kara France hit my main man Steve Urseg last night. So I love you guys all so much. Hit that like button whether you are new to the channel or not. Check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. Love you guys all. Hope you have a great one. And as always, good boy.